welcome back to What Now, a podcast for the lost and found. I'm your host, Amanda, and I'm here with my boys, Max and Dirks. So we have a special guest on this evening's show. One of my closest friends since 5th grade is here in Nashville and has agreed to come on and be a guest. Can you say hi, Dirks? We'll see how long this lasts, if Dirks is allowed to stay with us. But for now, we're real excited. Max has a wonderful and rich life story as a musician and entrepreneur and somebody who has gone through some various different struggles, but he has agreed to come on and talk to us about his what now moments. So I'm so glad that you're here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I am who she says I am. Those things. They're true.
No, you're all the wonderful things. So on today's episode, we're going to talk about going through various life struggles, but figuring out how to come out on the other side and manifesting for your future. What does that actually look like? What does that mean? How do you want your life to be after you've been through something either traumatic or frustrating, and you're getting back on your feet? But yeah, so let's get started. I figured we could talk a little bit about our friendship, how we originally met, Max, some of your favorite memories of us growing up or anything like that, and then we can dive into your career path. Very similar to what we did with Stevie. Max is also good friends with Stevie since we all went to high school together. Yeah.
Well, first of all, let me just say thank you for having me. It's an honor to be a part of this journey that you're on, and it's already been so awesome from what I've heard.
Thank you.
And it's also just really good for me to know that you're doing this, and it's inspiring. So thank you for doing it, and thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. I'm very glad you're here.
What else did you ask?
I know, we're already off to a rough.
I know.
I'm just kidding. No.
I changed the topic real quick.
No. Tell people about how we met originally. Like, do you have? I did ask. One of my first things I ever asked Stevie was, "Do you have a first memory of us, or like a moment where we became friends in our friendship that you think?"
Well, you could say...
Because I have lots of different core memories of you, but I don't know which core memory you have.
Right. You could say that our friendship started with a pursuit, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I definitely had the biggest crush on Amanda in 5th grade.
Mm-hmm.
Though things may have turned out different for me in life, she was always one of the leading women that I initially fell in love with. I remember you as Superwoman, and this isn't a beginning memory, but this is a core memory, and me as a Daniel Boone.
Yes.
At a Halloween party. That was
pops up on Facebook.
Great memories.
Yeah, I think that was at one of Zoe's house parties, one of her Halloween ones.
One of Zoe's parties.
I think I actually still have that Wonder Woman suit in my closet.
But yeah, and I can remember your cell phone number. It's never changed.
Mm-hmm.
You always had one, and I used to call it all the time. So I guess that's one of my core memories. I won't put you on blast right now, but your number.
Yeah, please don't give away my phone number.
I could recite it without even like.
Unless the person's real cute, then you can give it away.
Yeah, call me if you want to. Her number.
DM Max if you want to find out what my number is.
You know, if I went to jail and I knew no one else's number, I could call. So yeah.
Yeah.
And another good memories would be like when we did was it Impact? Was that what it was called? Where we did
the improv.
All the improv theater-esque things.
The Impact was like our middle school and high school improvisation acting training.
And we got to also write our own scenes and our own productions. It was a good experience. Those were some good times.
Yeah, that, and then in 8th grade, our 8th grade, kind of like a thesis, right? What was it called, though? We did that together on euthanasia.
On euthanasia.
And we wrote letters to Dr. Kevorkian, which he never responded to.
The brightest topic that you could ever choose, assisted suicide, and we wanted to study it in depth, and that was cool. I mean, it was very cool. It was kind of dark,
cool.
And I think your mom really helped prepare us for that.
She did, yeah.
Some of the people that mentored us through the process.
Were people that she knew. Yeah, that was impactful.
And we won awards.
That's true, we did.
Yeah. We did the damn thing, if you will.
Another successful Leslie Powers project.
Our high school is right on Broadway in downtown Nashville, so just up the street from where any tourist is definitely going to pop by, at least. Whether they pop by or whether they spend a whole night down there is a different story. But we were right in the thick of everything, and this city has grown a lot, and I feel like it's very symbolic to us growing a lot, and it's kind of cool in its own way. I love Nashville.
Would you say that it does actually feel like home?
100%. 100%. It is not my birthplace, so it's weird. Amanda is a unicorn, as she's mentioned previously, and as some of Nashvillians would refer to us as unicorns. But I technically am not, because I wasn't born here, but I was here since I was 4, so who's to tell me I'm not a unicorn? How do you tell a 4-year-old he's not a unicorn? You can't do that. That is not
especially
okay.
Max, the 4-year-old. Well, let's get into that a little bit. For the listeners that may not know who you are, give them a bit of your background, some of your upbringing, what kind of your early life was like, and if it gives us a window into how that impacted your most recent.
Awesome. Well, I've always been an adventurous person. I've always kind of looked at the world and taken its boundaries, or, the boundaries that were given to me, and explored them.
Sure.
Good or bad, better or worse, if you will. And I'm an artist, definitely. A musician, a singer-songwriter, and a bit of a Renaissance man, I guess. Okay. In that, all of these things that were kind of cultivated really early have continued in my life. And if you ask me what my career was, I would have to say musician, even though professionally I haven't worked as much in that field as I would like, or as I hope to. I would say that would be the career that I'm on, or the path that I'm on.
The path you want to be on, yeah. Is it the oldest or longest dream you've had?
Yes, that's what I was saying. I wrote...
Whether or not you've actually been pursuing it at the same time.
Right.
That's the thing that sticks in the back of your mind.
Right.
That's the thing that keeps you up at night. That's the thing
that keeps me going.
That keeps you going, yeah. Okay, cool.
Music, for sure. I wrote my first song, I want to say I was 6 years old, but it could have been 8, who's to say. But in the back of the minivan on a road trip to where I was from, in eastern Kentucky in the mountains. Mm-hmm. It was called One Kiss, One Touch, which seems really inappropriate for a 6 or 8-year-old.
I wonder what you're doing in those mountains.
Beautiful and wholesome. Right. Exactly. Terribly. It could have, if anybody had been listening at the time, which I'm sure, you don't listen to the kids in the backseat of the car anyway. So luckily, no red flags were thrown that day, but it was really just about innocence. It really had nothing to do with any inappropriate things, but it was called One Kiss, One Touch. And I remember it to this day. And it's definitely the first time that I remember I wrote a song. Right. And that is important and impactful to me. And other times, in life, I had a really great support system with theater and arts in our middle school program, like we mentioned, with the impact and stuff. Yeah. And then I went on to have a really great support system with music and theater and arts at UMFOG as well. And Darren Bruce and Lisa Forbes have a really great program there at UMFOG, and I got to participate in some really wonderful productions, sing in some really beautiful choirs again. And clearly, Miss Forbes and Mr. Bruce were huge impacts on your life. They were very important to you. Far beyond music and theater. Things that they taught me, like you said, I can use in my everyday life, and my ability to speak to people, and my ability to fake it till I make it, or whatever it may be.
I'm doing it right now with this podcast, pretending I'm at home.
Well, you're making it look
we'll figure it out.
Easy or good. I'm not sure which one, but you're making it look something.
Oh, thank you.
Hey.
No, yeah, I remember that we got very, very lucky at Hume because we had a lot of teachers that truly, pardon my French, but truly gave a shit. They're going to make sure that you're on the right path that you need to be on. And so that it was a safe place to be.
Yeah.
Despite being in the middle of downtown, and downtown Nashville now is extremely chaotic. But they've remodeled it, so we need to go back and
take a tour.
Yeah, we need to go say hi to McLean and finally take her up on that offer.
Hopefully
that's
another coach
that I'm really grateful I had.
Yeah, what a wonderful mentor.
I mean, she might have a good network that you could tap into.
Exactly. Those type of resources she might have already, and if I'm looking to explore them, she might be the good person to talk about how to explore them. Because if nothing else, after my What Now moments, I am a proponent and a fan of taking the chance, making the podcast, calling the friend, whatever the thing may be, do it. It might not be the right thing.
Right.
But if it's on your mind and it's something that you want more information about, or you want to explore them,
you got to at least try.
Probably got to do that, or it might not ever go away. It might just sit there always wanting to be explored. And I've built up a lot of to-dos and dreams and things to explore that I still haven't even got to yet. So I think it's important to utilize the resources that you have if they're there.
So do you have any particular What Now moments that did happen in high school, or would you say most of those were later?
Let's see. Well, let me try to just be cynical and snarky and funny about a few of them.
Oh, okay.
Let me be serious about some other ones. So I definitely came out in high school.
Yes.
By the end of it, I think I was officially fully out, whether you said, well, duh, if I told you I was gay, or whether you didn't know and it was news to you. I think
we all know.
I know, exactly. I think
we were just,
for most people,
we were letting you do your thing.
Exactly. And for most people, it was a process of them being so nice and generous with letting me be comfortable on my time. And that's one of the most beautiful things about it all. Yeah. With that, I had to sometimes say, what now? Was seeing me and now he's seeing her. That first time I ever dealt with that was in high school. And that's crazy. Yeah. Shout out to him and her.
We don't have to name names.
That's not my business.
Yeah, you can also, if you would like to, do pseudonyms.
Right. Well, coming out that's a me thing. And if that person ever wanted to come out, and they might already be out for all we know, that's a them thing. And that's another thing that I've learned with What Now moments, is that some of them are planned and some of them are unplanned. I think it's really cool that your show is What Now, a podcast for the lost and found, because it highlights the What Now moment, which is sometimes something that you don't think about in the moment that it's happening. You're just reactionary to.
I think a lot of my What Nows were actually, I was so stuck in survival mode a lot in, the past 10, 15 years, that it wasn't until I actually slowed down and took the time to realize what I was actually feeling and thinking that I would break down and then be like, oh, wow, I've been putting my body on hyper speed, etc. And now I'm actually feeling the stress and the repercussions are manifesting physically.
Yeah.
And it's not good. I need to pay attention to what my body's telling me, because it knows so much more than I give it credit for.
Right.
Kind of thing.
If you have the ability to listen to it, it's sometimes you're just not able to see those 1,000 signs until your body crashes and stops working, or your mind. And that's one thing. My What Now moments with mental health were all post high school.
Right.
Even post college, I didn't finish college, disclaimer, but even post college and college times, it wasn't for me. It might be for me one day. I actually am in school again, if you will.
Oh, really? Where?
I'm
wait.
Taking guitar.
Oh, okay, there we go.
I'm in a music school right now.
Music school.
With a wonderful teacher. Speaking of wonderful teachers again. But I dealt more in high school with my what now moments with things that were, you know, we might partake in some alcohol or some exploration on the weekends.
True.
What now? Okay, I grew up Catholic. Am I an alcoholic because I grew up Catholic, or because now I drink on the weekends sometimes with my friends? Like, there was a lot of that kind of things that I dealt with pre going out into the adult world, and that's a reality. I don't think it was ever excessive or dangerous, because we were responsible for the most part.
Yeah. Would you say that your religious upbringing maybe prevented you from dealing with some of these feelings at first, or being able to process them completely?
100%.
Because you were living in a very specific lifestyle, or you were told to live in a very specific lifestyle, and when that happens, sometimes it kind of actually looks more restrictive than it does open.
Right. Well, my religious upbringing was kind of bipolar, if you will, just because I had a Catholic side of things and I had a Southern Baptist side of things, and those two inherently are pretty different.
Yes.
And a cluster, and a lot for one mind to take in and idolize or worship, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I almost think that religion is too young for young people, youth. I don't know what the cutoff to learn about religion should be, but I feel like it's something that should be later in life. Definitely before you make a decision to commit to joining or confirming in any kind of thing. You really got to know who you are and grow and live before you make that decision. And that's not to say that you shouldn't be exposed to it, but as far as making those decisions, and I felt a pressure that was put on by solely me to be part of those things and figure out how I fit into both things, both Catholicism and the Southern Baptist practices, and they were different and alike in some ways. And I think who I am was mostly affected by music with religion. It really helped me find the understanding of passion in music and think of it, I guess, differently. And it honestly probably kept me a little more interested in religion than if it didn't have music. I don't know if I would have been as enjoyed going as engaged the whole time.
Yeah.
And that's to say I am a very spiritual person today. I don't really lend myself to any particular practice, but I respect them all and I study them even a lot more now, just to understand them and know the differences. And a lot of these books are there as guides for that religion, but it doesn't have to be the guide for your life. And that's the difference. You use this text to guide you in your religion, but I don't know that it is the guiding thing in my life, at least.
Right. It's typically a little difficult for converting modern day life into an ancient book or scripture.
Exactly.
Right, because it was written during their original time period, so it's not.
So about stuff that we
now.
certainly weren't around for.
Right. Yeah.
But I do respect the relatability to it all. Whereas I can read the epic story of the Bible and fall in love with Jesus as a character and someone who gave his life to sacrifice for everyone else to have life. And in my own walk in life, I have felt moments where I need to sacrifice myself, either what I want or what I need or whatever. And it may have been for the right or the wrong reasons. But if I said that I didn't relate to the Bible or like understand it, I think I'd be lying, because I do.
So it's okay. You can say whatever's actually on your mind, because I bet you there's somebody out there that's struggling the same way you did, or was curious about exploring religion in a more educational or objective way versus having it shoved down their throat. So
right,
it's hard to appreciate something when you are have so much pressure put on it. You know,
that more or less is the way to look at it objectively. I wish that I had known to be objective when even being, shown Christianity as Catholicism and Southern Baptistism, and remembered to be objective. And the fact that, okay, there are differences, there are things that I need to see in looking at this. And I didn't, I was never really that perspective or introspective in my youth. It's something that has come later in life.
Yeah, with hindsight, yeah.
And that's fine.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's start with after high school then. Everybody splits up. We all go off to either college, or we move states, or start jobs, etc. Where did you go first? And what path did that end up taking for you?
Well, I didn't go far, but I headed to Murfreesboro for school at Middle Tennessee State University, and immediately got a job through my sister's boyfriend at the time at a pharmacy as a checkout girl. And it didn't take very long before I got promoted to not assistant, but a shift manager, if you will, given keys to this pharmacy, required to take thousands of dollars of the pharmacy's money to the bank at the end of the night, and not a paycheck that reflected any of those responsibilities and my preparedness or anything. It was definitely one of the toughest things, because there were several people in the pharmacy that had been there much longer and weren't 18-year-olds that had the opportunity to advance, and they turned it down, but they seemed to not like it or be interested in the position once it was filled by me. And that was the first time I ever experienced that kind of dynamic in the workplace, where, number one, someone's been here longer than me and I'm advancing further than them. So it may seem, or this person's older than me and I'm younger by many years, and I want to be respectful to my elders, but I also am in charge right now, and I'm telling you what to do, ma'am. And it was
if you wanted the job, you should apply for it.
It was very tough. And then school was going okay. My classes that I was most interested in were first thing in the morning, and they were the hardest to get to, because I did enjoy myself as well while I was there. And so I didn't ultimately end up finishing. I got an opportunity through a roommate and friend at the time to take a job traveling with a production company doing film and photography for beauty pageants, both Miss USA and Toddlers and Tiaras, range alike. It was all the above, but mostly the Toddlers and Tiaras side of things. And that
Did you meet
was very tough.
Famous ones?
Famous friends in that world?
Yeah.
I know I met a few,
I'll
just call them queens. I don't know, that's what we call them. Say it again.
Honey Boo Boo?
Oh, no, never. Never Honey Boo Boo. But we did have an episode that we produced, the pageant, and it was on that show.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Toddlers and Tiaras. But we were producing pageants for productions, whether they were on TV or not.
Okay.
And That was kind of my first what now moment after high school, where, okay, I've got this job at the pharmacy that I've already advanced in, and I'm not even through school. I've got things going on in a career outside of what I'm studying for, which was music and music business, with a concentration in songwriting for those interested. And I am in school for that, but I'm also not doing the best because, I had to repeat that class just because I missed, a certain number of days, even though my grades were really good, but I missed too many, or even not missed, but maybe I was just late. There were real consequences once you got out of high school, and that was something that I wish I would have known or been more prepared for, because 17 was beautiful.
Yeah.
Right before the responsibility, hoo-wee. And then once the responsibility came, it's not that I wasn't prepared for it or didn't comprehend how to navigate it. It was just that I wasn't that great at it all at the same time. And so my what now moment was like, am I going to stay or am I going to go? And the production company was offering travel. I was getting to see things and see places, and
was it going to pay more than the
and pharmacy? It was paying more than
there you go.
The job that I was taking, and so I thought it was going to be more fulfilling. I did have a really great thing going with me. I was in a band at the time, and that didn't tear it up. I tore that up. I kind of messed that up, for sure. But it did create strain in being a band member. At the time, it was the most effort I'd ever put into music. It was the most plans I ever had for recording, the most songs that I'd co-written with a partner in an effort to put out something from it. And so that was, something that I lost in that process. And
when you took the job?
When I took that job.
Okay, gotcha.
And so that was also something that I didn't see coming. And I think from there, I came back to Nashville very briefly. My parents had a child late in life, and he is probably the light of my life, my pride and joy, even though he's not mine. But he looks just like me.
He does. It's creepy. It's pretty creepy.
Shout him out.
Very
just
interesting how powerful genetics are.
Sam I Am, if you will. If you can see my
Or do you want to read it? Or can you read it to the audience?
Oh yeah, so it's a Dr. Seuss quote here on my arm that says, "I do not like them, Sam I Am," and it's just below a rendering of the classic finger holding up the tray of green eggs and ham, which is really important and symbolic in my life. And my brother's name is Samuel Lucas, and I think of him as the Sam I Am. And so not only did I have the opportunity to be his nanny, his first nanny, when my mom went back to work after her pregnancy or delivery. Well, I guess he was taken out, so I don't know if you can really consider that delivered, but
right, yes,
he was cesarean, so yeah, it's still delivered, I guess. But after that, post
he made it.
He made it on out, and that's what's important. And she got through it too, which is important as well.
Yeah, it's
because that was, that was the way it went down for the other two, or three. There's three.
The other three, yeah. You're like, it doesn't matter.
But it is how it happened for him, and that too was a lesson. The major what now of having. It was weird when my mom was leading up to telling us, because you could tell she wanted to tell us something.
Yeah.
Then it was clear she wanted it to be in person, and then it was clear that it was important. So then you're just immediately thinking,
oh no,
of what it could be, and then you never thought that it could be that, particularly because my parents were older in life and had even been told by their doctors that pregnancy wasn't an option for them, and I think they were content with that.
Sure.
But they were more than content with...
More than capable.
They were more than content and obviously capable with having the fourth child. And that was beautiful. So I did that for a little bit and then went immediately back out onto traveling, kind of in a different field again, Jack and Minnie. trades here. I was in I guess medical waste recycling would be the industry I'd call it. Some people call it the medical industry. Like if I talk about that job, like the guy at a bar or something, you're like, oh, so you're still in the medical industry? And it's like, you think I'm in the medical industry at all? I wouldn't really consider that. Yes, I in-service nurses on medical waste recycling practices, and I also install what be called sharps containers or needle boxes in a lot of hospitals and walls of clinics and things like morgues, funeral homes. I mean, you name it, it was crazy. The places that I went, the dead bodies that I've seen.
Yeah.
Do you have
my boss played a trick on me one day that you'd be willing to share?
Well, my boss played a trick on me one day.
He said, what did he do?
Because we're at the root and the heart of our job, we were installers. So we're putting these things up. We have to take old things down. We have to make it look good with as minimal work for the hospital to do after that process. And my boss, we probably worked all day because we did go to great locations, New York City, LA. That was back to back one week, which we never really did that without coming home, but we happened to have to. And it led me to great cities where our friends had gone off to go to college or to work. And so that was really cool. But this particular day, we worked really hard. We would do that sometimes so that we could use our last day in the city to explore, do things that we wanted to do. And so I knew, we were on a time crunch anyway, to get all this stuff done. I think we were in New York, and I had a lot of things that I could want to do, or a lot of people that I would want to see if I had a free day, in New York. And he told me, there's 4 in this room. Right. I need you to do all 4 of them. But look, you can't make any noise. No noise. He said, she talked to me. She's going to let us in there. There was a lot of things that we'd have to deal with because, either A, you can't get into the room because there's something going on in the room that you can't see or wouldn't want to see or, whatever. Sure. But we have an obligation to get them all done. So we're trying to get back to some rooms that we haven't gotten to, and this lady's going to let me in, and I have to buy a bell if she wants. So I'm in there. And mind you, I'm wielding power tools at this point in my life, and that's pretty big. I'm pretty butch. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but I'm a bush
You're
man.
manly?
I'm a bush man.
You're a bush man.
I'm installing these on the wall, and I'm trying to just barely use my drill because I don't need to wake this patient up. And then my boss comes in and he's, what are you doing? Just yelling so loud. And I dropped my drill. I freaked out. What are you doing? You told me to be quiet. This is not okay, sir. He was like, he's dead. This person that I've been sitting in the room with for I don't know how many minutes trying to quietly do my job because it's not a quiet job, but I've been asked to, literally cannot wake up. Literally could not wake up. And then when I walked out, that nurse was laughing at me. He's laughing at me. And I still don't know how I feel about it to this day, but I've laughed about it. I tell it now. I present it as a joke. It's funny, but it was kind of wild to me.
Yeah, the amount of dead people you would
see. The amount of respect into the silence that I was giving. Or
I'm
not.
Sure he appreciated it. It's but, I'm having a rough time. I'm having a rough day. Could you keep it down?
Yeah. I was like, can you believe the nerve of that guy? But he didn't have working nervous system anymore, so.
No feelings.
It was wild. But yeah, that was a highlight of that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, where'd you end up going after that?
So I guess this is a good time to talk about my colorful past, which we of course know when colorful you were there. It was colorful. But sometimes colorful means different things. But this is a job that I lost. And I didn't mention before that not only was I, previously worked for my mom and dad as their nanny, but then this job that I moved into was with my dad's company at the time. I was obviously in a different division. I didn't do what my dad did, but it was the company.
You're talking about the medical installation.
Yeah. The installing with the dead people. My dad worked for the same company. So I had a lot of pressure to do good in that company, I felt like, just because my dad got me the job, literally. And I actually lost this job because I failed a drug test for smoking pot. A drug test that I knew was coming, and I guess I could have cheated my way out of, but I didn't. I don't know where my head was at, because I probably cheated to take the drug test to get the job, just between you and me and all the podcast listeners. But it was a big what now moment for me, because what now? I've lost the job that is great. Traveling, it's not always great, even with the dead people and the circumstances of pressures of getting these big jobs done, but it is overall great, and it is paying my bills and all these things, and my family, whether I choose to tell them the truth or not, is definitely going to learn the truth, because
they are now.
It's well connected. And so it was a big lesson. It was crazy, because the company kept me on for almost a whole year. Not a whole year, but maybe 6 months, maybe 9 months after the drug test. Basically, they used me until they didn't need me anymore, and then they finally brought up that test from way back when, which I guess I thought I somehow aced.
Right. If they waited that long, do you think they told your dad when it happened, or they told him when they fired you?
Did they tell my dad? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
No. Well, that was up to me, but I knew that there was no way for me not to tell him.
Hi everyone, we're back. Had to take a quick break there to deal with Dirks. He was a little wild.
Poor thing. He's got it so hard.
I know.
He couldn't get content and settled for a second.
I know. But yeah, so you end up losing the medical installation job. Yeah.
And
where do you go from there? It ends
with me basically having to be a really big adult for the first time in my life. Not only admit to some wrongdoing in some people's eyes, at least, but own it and make sure that I was honest about it 100%. It oddly enough happened on the weekend of that aforementioned baby brother's birthday. Right. So I did wait a full, I think, week before I told anyone what had happened in the reality of everything. But I did. It was a good point in my life, because my what now moment hasn't always been to be honest or to even talk about it.
Sure.
It being whatever has gone on in life. Sometimes it has been to just kind of conceal it or deal with it privately. And I've learned in a lot of my what now times that that's not really constructive and helpful in the end. It's actually very therapeutic and very important to not only share your story and whatever, but have that ability to have that honesty. And it took a while in my story to get the ability to be 100% fully honest with myself and with those around me. And that was definitely a step towards it, for sure.
Gotcha. Yeah.
For sure.
Well, one of the first important steps. Admitting that something was wrong.
Baby steps, if you will.
Yeah. All right. So would you say that this was an issue that kind of snowballed? Like, you started with marijuana, did it snowball into something else, or did it just kind of depress you after you lost the job? Like, what was kind of your mental state there, and where did you take it?
Yeah, well, if anything, marijuana probably helped me through that time. I think of marijuana in a real medical sense. I don't really think of it as the stereotypical gateway that a lot of people talk about it as. Sure. If there was a gateway in particular for anything, I guess for me it would be alcohol, because it came first anyway.
Right.
And so I would say that would be the gateway. Now there is a definite time and place kind of mentality that I have now with things, and I don't use marijuana today. But that's not to say that I wouldn't if I lived in Colorado or California, because it's legal there. And yes, to answer your question, it did certainly lead to other things. I don't think I had much of a downfall from that experience to where it took me out and I couldn't get back up. It was very defeating. I definitely didn't have another gig lined up where I was going to travel and feel so exotic and wonderful about my work career.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of a little reality. It did ultimately kind of land me back in Nashville, which was a good thing, a very good thing.
If you're open to it, let's explore the alcohol issue. Did that develop, you think in high school where we had been drinking and partying every now and then, or did it come through in your college age, kind of early 20s? And how did that actually affect your life?
Right. I don't think that alcohol for me has ever been an issue. Even though I identified as an alcoholic from a very early age, I think, again, just from my Catholic upbringing and that even among Catholic friends and Jewish friends in a young age, we kind of always just had we're all headed to be alcoholics kind of mentality,
right?
But it did, I am definitely an addict, and that's more the identifier that I would give myself.
Okay.
Even in my sobriety, I've had some wine, I've had, a drink and it not be a issue for me, and I'm lucky in that respect.
Absolutely.
And that's not the case for everyone. I think recovery in general, if there's anything I've learned about it, is that it's very individual and very unique. There is definitely a wonderful camaraderie in the community of people seeking recovery, just because you realize how many people out there are like you. And when you think these things that you've been through are so unique, and they 100% are. They are special, if you will, or yours, and not anyone else's. But there are definitely similarities that you find in that community. And I think that being in recovery longer, I got better at it. When I first started recovery, it wasn't easy. And even though I thought I was ready, I didn't really know what it meant to try to recover. When I first started seeking help in the mental health field, I literally turned myself in to an involuntary commitment, basically, at least for 3 days is what was supposed to be, so I could get some attention and some help with things. And in the moment, I kind of freaked out and gave them every answer they wanted to hear and was released within hours, versus what my support team had thought was about to be a 3-day, minimum stay for me. And I managed somehow to get them to let me out in several hours. My people that were around me that were really helpful at that time had to help me grasp, okay, well, what happened? Why are you
out?
Back out right now? When you were going in for this help, what happened? And then I realized, I freaked out and told them everything they wanted to hear.
Sure.
I didn't actually tell them anything that I needed to say. I just kind of told them what I thought would get them to stop talking to me. And so that was my first go at it, as far as getting help for myself. And it did start with mental health for me, making sure that I love myself. Of course, I love myself and always have, but have I always had my best interest in heart? Not at all. Did I always put me first? Not at all.
Definitely not.
And those were things that I knew at the time that I needed to address, because my story did progress further than drugs and alcohol, or weed and alcohol, to other drugs, both prescribed and unprescribed. Right. And, I at some point needed medication that I thought I was self-prescribing, self-medicating, but in reality is probably needed a doctor's,
Right.
guidance and opinion in the process, at least. It's not all cut and dry. You can't really say this is going to work for this person and this is going to work for this person.
Right.
But there definitely was a downfall, a rock bottom for me.
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah. When in your recovery timeline, when did the rock bottom happen, and how did you finally decide that you do want to try doing the recovery?
So, I think that, in my opinion, I lived a pretty regular, normal life up until about 27. There's a thing among musicians, and there's great musicians that we've lost, and artists, not just musicians, actors, musicians, and people that we don't even probably know of or hear about, that are in what's called the 27 Club. That's basically that they died at 27. And I literally lived with that irrational fear, like up until I was through 27, at least, all the way through it, just because I had a little more colorful past and tendencies that, well, this is a real possibility for someone like me.
You weren't intentionally trying to die.
Correct. So how conceited and, whatever of me to think that I would be a part of such a club of elite artists when mainly to that point, my art really was something that either, I don't have much to show for it. And so
kept private at the time.
Yeah. Well, that wasn't on purpose or on, accident. It was just the way it was. But ultimately, those people got to 27 and then had this catalog at least to leave behind. And I got to 27 really in fear, but also whoa, you forgot to make the catalog, buddy. And so it was a lot of things that I was dealing with, not only, well, I try not to age myself. We are in the 30s Club now.
And I've already said
and I'm 100% comfortable and cool with it now. But I mean, really, that I feel like that's a very new thing for me to feel that way. And the whole 27 thing leading up to that year, I feel like I just kind of went through life. I enjoyed it for sure.
Right.
I definitely took it too far sometimes, for sure. But I think that it was all pretty under control. That particular year was kind of crazy and heavy and dark. Not at the time, but a year later, by 28, I'd realized that I had gone through something at 27. And it was really traumatic. And it was really actually something that I should have probably given some thought and given some kind of some grace to myself, because I at the time really blamed myself for said trauma intently to the point that I ignored it. And I think at the time I was 28, it had surfaced, it had erupted out of me, it had come up, and I was ready to deal with it. Unfortunately, by that point, a whole year of not only self-medicating, but self-medicating in the dark, and not even fully understanding what I'm really because that time that I got in my most serious and intense and unnecessary using was that year
to deal with
and it really spiraled.
You're saying that intensity spiked after the traumatic event?
Yes.
In particular?
100%.
Yeah, but you didn't realize that in the moment.
Right. Okay. And that's not to say that it was right to do the things that I had done before the event either. But they were just like anything else in my life. I've seen boundaries, I've been given boundaries, and more often than not, if you told me not to do something in life, I was probably going to do it because I wanted to know why you didn't want me to do it. And that is a weird thing about my curiosity that I have to deal with, but
Sure.
I do.
Yeah.
And I have. And I'm fortunate. I'm almost 3 years clean.
That's wonderful.
Again, sobriety is different for everyone. Recovery is different for everyone. So respect those things when people talk to you about them. It's not always been the same journey for me, but it's been all recovery driven. And where I'm at right now, almost 3 years apart from that, which is not even the time that I spent after that trying to figure out, well, what does it mean when I want to stop, but I can't? What does that mean? What now? Because I have stopped for X amount of days, but today I can't not stop. Or today, so-and-so put it in my hand. Or today, there's a whole world within the recovery world of people that not only want to be there and want to recover, but then there are people that are being required by legal obligations to be there or recover, or parental obligations that they have to achieve to be there and recover. So once you're in the mix of that, you've got to battle okay, well, who's really here because they mean it? Who's really here because they have to be? Sure. Who's just still lost? Are you referring to recovery programs in general, or was there a particular one across the board? Across the board, okay. Across. Did you happen to participate in multiple recovery programs? Did you have one that was particularly, I know your most recent one was successful and you were able to do that when you moved back to Nashville, and that was pretty helpful of getting you back on your feet. But if you could maybe talk a little bit about the different programs that you maybe tried, but it didn't work. Right. And maybe a little bit about why. Right. So I first of all, I never thought, even in my times of self-medicating or exploration, I never thought that even if I thought I had a problem or like confirmed it in my own mind, that there was a way that I could ever go to rehab, because it seemed so foreign to me. How does anyone, be that honest with the people around them to disappear for X amount of time to get better? Or how does anyone not notice that you're gone for X amount of time because you want to get better, and then you want to, for me, it was a very personal thing. It was something that I was dealing with and that I had to deal with. I did involve some other people with trying to help me get prepared for going to a detox or going to a program. And that was definitely helpful. But ultimately, it was something that I had to do. I think I read a Jamie Lee Curtis quote recently, where she was talking about, there was nothing I could have said to me then. In those moments that was going to change anything. Because ultimately I had to, and this is hugely paraphrased, and this is not what Jamie Lee Curtis said, but, she essentially was saying, there was nothing that she could have told herself then, until she saw it and wanted it and found it for herself. And I totally relate and respect that. And there are really great programs out there, and there are some not good ones, in my opinion. I think with any program, if you respect the boundaries of the program and the process, then I think you're going to succeed with it. But if you're trying to see how you can just do enough, or like what corners you can cut, then you're already doing yourself a disservice, because you're not really trying to at least get what that program is trying to give. And I did my first rehab in 2019, after my biggest moment, my rock bottom, which was homelessness. And I have a song. It's called "Homeless in My Hometown," but I'm still working on it. And it's really about the idea of, there was 1,000 couches in the city that would have been available to me on any particular cold night or not cold night. If I would have asked for them or been a person that was willing to receive that help, but also deserve that help. Yeah. I don't know exactly what I mean by that, but
I think lots of people struggle with asking for help, especially if you feel like you don't deserve it. Society still puts a lot of shame and pressure on people and guilt on people that are struggling with addictions, because it's I mean, a lot of the science that's coming out about it, like it truly changes the chemical makeup of your brain.
Yeah.
And it rewires you to think and act a certain way on the drugs and off the drug. And being off the drug trains your brain to be very upset if you're off.
Yeah.
And it can get very dangerous. Yeah. So I know you are a different person when you're dealing with that type of identity, and you didn't want your friends or your family or your associates to see you, which is unfortunate, because they probably would have, exactly like you said, taken you in or let you crash and at least take a shower and hang out.
Pretty much just had the other homeless community and then those that serve the homeless community that I had access to. And there are great programs here in Nashville, particularly. Of course, there's the Bishop, which staying there is not so great, but they do have great programs to help people. They do. And Room in the Inn, they had a lottery. It was the winter that I was homeless, and I would go. It was hard because you want to get a job, you want to do something to fix the homelessness, but these resources that are available to them, you have to be there at a certain time to get a ticket to hope that your number gets called. So you hope that you're getting on a bus later to go to a church to sleep for the night and have a meal. Right. And so it really throws a wrench in the plan of how do I even try to better my life, but I also got to be here. I was very fortunate many nights to get off the street, but that first night that I didn't get picked, so sad. Just me, I was so sad. It really wasn't that sad. It was I built a little makeshift shelter with a hobo buddy of mine, and we did what we had to do. Ultimately, that process led me to, a definite I have to go to rehab kind of point of view.
And so, was your family still in town in 2019?
Yes. And so that ultimately was part of my homelessness. So I lost my condo due to the homeless association where I was living. I, at the time, was engaged to a man that I love and loved. And things obviously weren't all 100% right or great in our personal lives at the time. And I think that ultimately was part of the reason why the relationship didn't work. But at the time, he went to live with some family in Pennsylvania. I had family here. I was trying to navigate living with them. But again, I have that baby brother. Not only do I not want to be around him in certain states or, whatever, at the time I didn't navigate it well. And I essentially got myself kicked out of my family's house. And that's something that I did. And it was twofold. It was one, so, okay, well, I can go back out and get high again.
Yeah, because now they can't watch me.
Because nobody, I don't have those reins on me. And, if I make a big enough scene or deal or whatever, then I'm going to get kicked out. And then it's, so it's really, I think about that time. I think that's the time that's okay to accept the blame and put it on myself, because I really made that decision. I really chose getting high over living with my family, which I knew I could do, but I knew that I couldn't do it and get high like I wanted.
You had to pick one or the other.
And so I had to pick, and at the time, that's what I chose. But that's where I decided that I had to go to rehab. I found a program called Samaritan Recovery. It's really centrally located near the what do they call it these days? Nissan Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that I knew where I was kind of camped out at this point. It didn't happen until after the winter because, again, like, I needed to probably be working on it then, but it wasn't, I didn't know if it was going to be too cold to walk across that bridge to go get to that interview, like, at the time. But I had to make commitments once I started committing to it, that I was going to be somewhere, be there at a certain time and not be in a certain state. And I got really blessed. This girl had given me an Uber. My friend and I had lunch, and he got me an Uber back downtown where I was staying. And the girl that drove me heard a little bit about my story and was really proud and told me, the day that you need to get to rehab, I want you to call me. If you can't get there, well, I'll get you there. There's no charge, there's no nothing.
And that's so nice.
It was beautiful. And that's how serendipitous and wonderful life is to me. Because even in my darkest times, I've had light there. I just had to look and see it. I've had help. You asked if I always had an example to look up to. And sometimes I thought I didn't, but really I always did. Mm. And ultimately, I got into rehab in 2019. I went into what's called a transitional living program after that 28 days for another 90 days. Mm-hmm. You're out of rehab, but you're still in a facility. You've got to get a job within a certain amount of time. And you got to, be doing these things really quickly because it's required of you, to succeed in it. Sure. Number one, and it helps you to remind yourself that even if it's just a job, quote unquote, that you can go out and do the interview process, and you can get hired for who knows what it might be.
You can do all these things
but something that's going to pay the bills. Yeah, and that was a really important thing. That program was 90 days, and then I transitioned to another. Not a facility, but they were individual apartments that we had, still associated with the Samaritan recovery. And I did that for what was almost a total year of sobriety. I didn't make it the full year the first time I tried. The first thing that was wild to me about rehab, though, was going to rehab when they ask you to raise your hand if you've ever been to rehab or if it's your first time. Okay. And I expected a lot of first timers. Mm-hmm. And there was like no other first timers. These were all 15 timers, and this guy's on his sixth time, and this guy's on his third time. And well, that's cool. Yeah. Because, it says a lot about trying and not giving up. But it is a reality of what I was getting into. They tell you the statistics. One in so many aren't gonna make it a year. One in so many, so look around you. This person on the left and this person on the right aren't gonna be sober this time next year. Yeah. And that was a huge reality of like, whoa, like, can I do it? Yeah. Am I capable of being one of whatever, or two of whatever? I don't know the statistics. They're not important to me anyway. But
the point was that it's but it
is. It's a reality. Yeah. And I think I got to see that firsthand. I did get my own place. Me having that history with trauma. I had the apartment, but it was two people in the apartment. And so we didn't have quite enough space for me to feel comfortable with the traumas that I'd gone through. Sure. In the closeness of some of the, things that apartment required. And so I took myself out of that situation and found the cutest place I've ever lived, a basement apartment in Donaldson, and lived out there for a little while. And I was still doing mostly well. There was an immediate relief of, okay, well, if I mess up now, at least there's not the pressure of my program or the pressure of, whatever seeing, there's also not the accountability of it either. And I slowly did start to give into temptation for a little bit. But then what ultimately happened was COVID. The world stopped.
Right.
I lost 2 jobs in one day because I was not essential. I was a server. And for whatever reason, my thought process was that maybe I can make money with drugs. And that was the one career path that I never needed to take, that I honestly did not do bad at.
Right.
In that I thought that me having a supply of drugs would never happen because I would never not go through them all. But I actually was very disciplined in not doing up my supply and having it available for the people I served. And ultimately that led me back out. I was way too wild and way too crazy to think that was a good solution to the world ending and me already having the problems that I was dealing with. And so let me try to be an entrepreneur in this. And I had a big what now moment where I had to call my parents and ask for help. And I hadn't spoken to them in over 3 years. And I'm so glad that they answered the phone. I'm so glad that I knew their number, like I know yours. And I'm so blessed, that they were willing to help. But again, they have a young child in the home. They can't just expose all their worlds together. But I respect them for wanting to help. And they did. They got me into a program that I would not consider to be one of the best programs, but God bless them for helping me.
Sure.
It did help me. And I did participate in the program as long as I possibly could. Even though the weight of knowing they wanted me to finish it held over my head. Ultimately, the program was not right for me, and I had to run away, quite literally. And that was a big one now moment, because not only do I think, I've just gained the trust, not the trust, that still wasn't back, but the support and the help and the contact with my parents. And here I am risking throwing it all away because I'm not comfortable where I'm at for personal reasons.
No, but I mean, that does put you kind of in a hard place. You also deserve to feel safe and respected while you're dealing with your rehab program.
Exactly. Full transparency, this particular program was a Christian-based program, which I have no qualms or problems with.
Right.
I did stress to my parents how important it was for me to speak with the leader, pastor, in this case, of this program, about how I wasn't coming to his program to hear anything about my sexuality, to hear anything about, me as a person. I was coming to deal with my sobriety. And that's what his program was offering. There was a lot of other things going on in the program that were not okay and not comfortable to be around. But that particular ethical, thing did at some point become a major focus to him, at least. And I literally wasn't allowed to attend an NA or an AA class until I completed such other things. And then it wasn't working for me because, again, I was there for some NA or AA kind of help. And so that being said, NA and AA are both wonderful programs. Honestly, I kind of like AA more. As far as the people that participate.
Are you currently participating in either?
I do. I attend AA and NA meetings, not regularly, but I have meetings that I feel comfortable at, or places where people that I'm comfortable around go to meetings, and I do find a lot of strength and hope and all those good things within the program. It is supposed to be, and it claims to be, a non-religious program. But they do put God as a big part of the forefront, which is not a problem to me. But ultimately, NA and AA aren't going to make me clean or sober. I'm not following those programs because they are my sobriety. I have to find my sobriety within myself and my willingness to be sober and my whole pathway to get there. That has to come from within me. It really can't be something that a book teaches me in a way. Yes.
I think it's very profound that you're recognizing that for you and for your rehab journey and your sobriety journey, that the only person that can keep this going or who is truly responsible for it is not anybody else but yourself. And that over-reliance on an outside source like NA or AA it's a tool. It's not the solution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's one day at a time. That is one, I guess, I don't know if it's NA or A. I think AA would be responsible for it first, but they both use it.
Yeah.
It's one day at a time. Mm-hmm. And my mom really reminds me of that a lot. And that to me is special because she understands a lot more than I give credit for sure. But it's not necessarily from personal experience all the time.
Sure.
So there is definitely some things that she doesn't understand, but she, in particular, has done such a great job before rendering myself homeless again, and to go back into where I was at that rock bottom state before I made that call to them, or after I made that call to them. And I had my own place. That was the first time that I came out to my uncle about just how severe the problems that I was dealing with were. And that was huge. Because again, before with the accountability for being honest with what the situation was and what had happened with losing that job, this was me like putting it out there fully 100%, no filters, and God bless my uncle.
Telling him the whole story.
Yeah, for sure, because that was hard to hear. I know, and he took that information and he spread it out where it needed to be, and that was helpful because then it alleviated that pressure of me to kind of explain things to some people, but it definitely got everyone on board with the severity of the situation.
I appreciate him stepping in as the buffer system. Isn't step one in the programs like admitting you have a problem? Yeah.
That's step one in like the idea of most 12-step programs, I think.
Gotcha.
I feel like I could quote it better than I just did.
Well, I can't quote it at all. I personally believe it's something that you're never actually really going to get rid of, right? Like it's going to be something you may be sober, yes, but you're going to be living with it for the rest of your life. And it's going to be something that's on your mind all the time, on a good day and a bad day. And it helps if you are a loved one of that person that you take the time to like educate yourself to make sure that you're aware of like, what is this process actually like for them? How does this actually affect them? And what are the best ways to deal with their particular concern?
Right.
Because I'm sure responding to an alcoholic would be different than responding to somebody with heroin or cocaine or meth addiction or something like that,
Right.
So
and this full disclosure, I mean, I of course had my drug of choice, one thing that like drove me, especially in the end. But I mean, I tried it all. By the end of, once you're in that place of desperation of like anything that's going to make you feel different than the things that you're feeling or not wanting to feel, it's going to seem appealing to you.
Would you say that was one of the key reasons why you wanted to stay in that particular state? What it was, avoidance?
It was avoidance. And I think ultimately like a lackadaisical kind of laid back point of view to trying new things got me in trouble because, I tried too many things that were not good for me. And I ultimately knew beforehand, but still had to just had to try. Or maybe at the time it wasn't had to try, but I didn't want to feel what I felt, and that was available. And so that was, I'm trying it. And that's just what it was. I got out of that particular program with the Christians, and God bless them, but it wasn't right for me. And I took a little hiatus, got out of town for a little bit again, but ultimately was homeless still at this time. Dropped a song on TikTok that had like over 200,000 views.
Nice.
Took this particular TikTok famous person on a trip to Miami because we thought we were going to start making content together. He got me into making content on TikTok. At least I've always been a content creator of my own sort. And that kind of crashed and burned. Him and his friends tried to rob and steal my car and beat the living daylights out of me.
That's horrible, Max. Absolutely horrible.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Check my TikTok video. I don't believe anything. It's all still there. Luckily, I got out of that situation okay. A lady literally saved my life. God bless her, for sure, too.
Yeah, thank you, lady.
She took me into her car because they were chasing me, and she locked it and called the police. I was lucky for that. Yeah. They came and got their stuff from my hotel later that night, and I gave it to them, and we went our separate ways. And that was another big, huge, okay, well, I've gotten out of this program. Things immediately went really wrong again.
Real sideways.
You gotta reel it back in. And I went again with what I knew helped me before. I went to the same program, Samaritan Recovery in Nashville.
Yeah.
Got another intake date. Of course, I didn't have a house at this time. You think I had insurance? No. So luckily, the first time and this particular time, they were able to get me in on a grant, which was great. I needed that resource.
Right.
It's only provided, I think, at least within their facility, once every calendar year. Some people within the community say, you need to change your whole location. You need to, if this isn't working, then try this or whatever. I thought that the 28 days in rehab alone was very valuable, because when you're 28 days separated, but by the time that 28 days is over, you're already feeling better. You're already seeing things differently than you looked at them before we came in. Even if you use right up to the moment that you go.
Yeah.
You're going to have time for those things to happen. And so that's what I thought was most valuable. It's what I could certainly afford. And I wanted to continue to have my family's support and make them proud and be a man of my word that, I am trying with this.
Yeah.
And so I followed through, and I had a great friend, my girl Lindsay, that I FaceTimed her with my eye practically swollen shut, and I was like, this isn't great.
Yeah.
And I said, and I've contacted Samaritan, I need to go back.
Right.
I actually met her in that program previously. She, to this day, she's got to be up to close to 6 years sober now.
Good for her.
I was fortunate that she said, come back, come to my house, and I'll keep you until you go. Because it's not
you can't just,
once you decide you're going to rehab or you get into a place, you still don't just go.
Yeah.
You gotta wait.
You have an intake date?
You have an intake date, you have an interview date, and then that can even change on a whim just because the bed became unavailable.
Sure.
Or it could move up, and they could call you and say, hey, do you want to come in next week instead?
Yeah.
And hopefully you're at a point where you're like, ooh, no, it's kind of like, no, you're not like me, or it's like, no, I was kind of planning on being really
I was gonna wait till Monday. I was gonna start over.
That was kind of like my last week. So can we just keep it the same? No, like you gotta roll with those punches and be ready.
Yeah. When you are. So you're saying if you're serious about your recovery and the opportunity opens
up, then you're gonna go.
Take it.
Then you gotta take it.
Yeah. Okay.
And so let's see. Yeah, it was great. I didn't do the transitional 90-day program after that because I didn't see the value of what that was going to do versus me going ahead and going out and getting a place. Well, I went into recovery housing, but I didn't follow the exact same path that I followed the first time. But I mean, it didn't work the first time. But I followed the path, time. Right? Yeah. And yeah, it's going really great. I've got a really good community of people around me. Some that I went into rehab with on the same day that first time that are still sober today. And, I've had a lot of humbling experiences through the process that have just been immense, like growth and learning. Like it's insane.
Earlier in our interview, you said that it would have been hard to tell yourself something because you wouldn't have been ready to hear it. But all things being equal, if you could talk to yourself when you were in the worst of it, what is something that you would say to that Max? Now, you have been sober for almost the 3 years. You've got some distance from it. Is there something that you would want to say to that Max?
Yeah. Well, so many things probably. First of all, I would say just because they install the battery at the store doesn't mean you need to let them put it in your car. You're a capable and person that can put that battery in your car yourself, and there's lots of things in life that you have the tools for and you know how to do, and there are just things that you got to do for yourself. There are things that are going to be hard. There are times that you are maybe not going to think that you are going to get through them. There are going to be things that you didn't understand, but ultimately all of those things are a part of your journey. And there's no shame or guilt that's more important than you ultimately carrying on and continuing to fulfill the potential that you know that you hold.
Looking back on your experiences, what would you say is your greatest accomplishment?
Well, I'm like a parent when it comes to accomplishments. They're all my babies. I love them all the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most recently, I would say coming on your podcast is a really awesome accomplishment because I feel special in my own way. I hope that this is entertaining to people, and I hope that this is engaging to people, but also none of that really matters because it's really special to me, and I'm so glad to be a part of it. And I know it's special to you, so that makes it even more important. I did recently complete a really awesome program in Nashville, and I'm proud of that. And then my brother, even though I didn't birth him, I'm really proud of him, and he is probably the one achievement or thing that I'm just so happy to be present for, and really, inspired by the love that he is capable of, and the courage that he has, and I don't want to cry, but
you love him. You love him, and
I love him.
It's very, very. It's clear that family matters very much to you, and he's very important to you as well. And you want to succeed in general, so that you can witness his life and him growing up to be the man that he's clearly going to be. But it's nice to know that you have an example to show, right? There's somebody there that does care and will be looking up to you. So it's another good reason to just keep on the path.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. No, that's great. What would be your next goal? So you've accomplished so many things, like you said, many of them being your favorites. Do you have any current goals right now that you are working on achieving? Yeah.
I want to keep taking my sobriety and my journey one day at a time. But, beyond those things, I'm still a dreamer.
Yeah.
I want to continue with therapy. I'm really fortunate to have found the therapist that I have in my journey.
Yeah.
And she's really accessible. She's really affordable. And that's ultimately the main thing. But I don't utilize her as much as I could or should. So I want to do that more. And I want to promote my accomplishments and music particularly more. It's definitely sad to me that a lot of people don't even know that I'm a musician or that I write songs. And that might be because a lot of my life is just dealing with the day-to-day right now and getting through. But making it more holistic to where I'm promoting my full self.
Yeah.
I would like to be putting content out there, whether it's professionally done or not. I think that doesn't matter.
Absolutely should. We're living in Nashville, the music capital of the country, so there's tons of opportunities where you can do the open mics or get out to the off-Broadway stages where you could show up and test out your songs with an audience and see how it goes. And like we had talked about earlier, doing a Spotify channel or SoundCloud
or YouTube channel. Yeah, right.
Okay.
But ultimately, doing that to continue expressing myself, sharing my story, because that's important. Being unafraid of new things like being a guest on a podcast when I've never considered that option in my life before. But embracing it head on and continuing to impress myself. Because it's nice when, other people are impressed with you, but sometimes when you get real impressed with yourself, like, the's nothing like that. There's nothing like, ooh, boy, you did that today.
Look at me leveling up today.
I'm proud of you, big guy.
I'm glad you came on the show. I do really appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing some of your story, and I do hope that it resonated with some of our audience, and that if anybody right now is struggling and needs help in Nashville, like you did provide a lot of good resources, and well, after we're done recording, you can give me the contact information for those particular programs that worked out well for you, and I will add that to the description box of or the show notes, I guess is what it's called, on the episodes. That way, if somebody would like to check those out, they can look there.
100%.
Yeah. Okay. So, thank you so much for listening to What Now, a podcast for the lost and found. We are so grateful for Max coming on the show today, and I appreciate you sharing your story and being vulnerable with everyone. But I'm glad to know that you're still here and you're taking your life in a positive direction, and you're looking for growth and improvement, and you're defining your why, which is what's keeping you on the up and up with your path. I'm very grateful.
What now?
Say what?
Keeps me able to face the what now.
Exactly. It does help you face the what now. So we're going to transition real quick and check back in with us on episode 6 to hear more about our future plans and our manifestations on our vision boards.
Which are stunning. They're stunning.